I castled. He played knight d2, and I played queen c7. As I already said, it's not the move I love to make, and it's not the only plan for black. But in such important game, I didn't see the reason to deviate from something which already brought me good result in the game with Averkin. And now Hort surprised me. Well, not really surprised me. I knew he wouldn't repeat the game with Averkin. Averkin play was too passive. He played rook b1. Now, what can I do? I thought for a while. Now it's my turn to think for 10-15 minutes. I considered several moves. He wants to play b3. After this, which, as I said, there is no pin on this long diagonal. And my pieces, especially this knight, but the bishop in a way also, blocking action of my rooks. And as we already discussed on move c4, he always would play b4 with devastating to connected pass pawns. So I want to stop him from playing b3. How can I do it? One idea was to play knight g4. It was one idea, to play knight to g4. He perhaps would play queen c2, followed by the same move b3. So I decided, remember, I thought about it during game with Averkin, or rather preparing for Averkin. I thought about this move. Why not to play here? After all, I'm attacking the pawn.
But Lev, I must say that this move strikes you as strange, because you put the queen opposite this bishop.
Exactly.
In a way, like on the end of this diagonal of this bishop, and you put it opposite this rook. So this is a very paradoxical move.
Paradoxical move, especially while I'm not intending to win this pawn, so rook probably would not be open unless he plays b4, which is also should be considered. And I did consider it. But my intention was basically, and the only reason for this move is to take the pawn on d5. And when I take the pawn on d5, it wouldn't be an extra pawn. I just win my pawn back, and after that, it would be very unpleasant pin by bishop against queen, but also against the rook. But I thought about it, and I saw this position called for such action. It was a daring move, and it didn't come easy, but I felt it's a good move, and I made it. Now, what can he do? He can, of course, defend the pawn by either moving his knight, but then I would move my knight. Or maybe I would play knight c4 at that moment. Or he can play e4, but this weakens this diagonal, and I use it immediately by driving the rook back to initial square.
Well, the other point, too, is it would weaken the square for your knight to come later.
Exactly. And that's why, of course, I knew he wouldn't play e4. I knew that most likely the move he would play, of course he can move the knight, but Hort now here thought also for a while, and he played b3, kind of challenging me, he basically was saying, I'm calling your bluff. Do you really want to take this pawn on d5? Yes, I had to take. I thought for a while, because maybe it would be a losing move, I wouldn't make it. It's no reason to be consistent if being consistent means losing. In fact, I remember one story with Botvinnik. Botvinnik in one of his games played rook, let's say for sake of argument, he played rook f to d1. And then he said, I realized that my rook would be better placed on e1, this rook. And on the next move, I play rook d1, e1, and put exclamation mark. And I put exclamation mark to my kind of strength of character. Many players, and this move wasn't forced, many players would make several moves in between and only then move the rook. The argument would be why to show to opponents that you make a mistake. But Botvinnik says, I want kind of to punish myself, and in a way, I was showing to my opponent not the weakness but the strength of my character. I'm willing to recognize my mistake, and he put exclamation mark for this. So Botvinnik was in a way my teacher, and if necessary, I would recognize my mistake, and even if necessary, move queen to d7. But I didn't see any reason to do it because I did not see a refutation of this move. I thought it's the best move. I decided to make it. So I not take d5.
So in the game, he took on d5?
He took on d5, and I took on d5.
Now you are pinned. There's no question. You are definitely pinned here.
But it's difficult for him to use a spin, because I also have one unpleasant threat, knight c3. For instance, if I drive my knight away, I would play knight c3. Now, how he can use a spin? He cannot go here, because now his rook is also pinned. So I will take on c4. He cannot retake me, because I will take his rook. So how he's going to use my knight? And I have a plan to unpin myself with great effect. I go here and here, and now instead of pin, I have a great battery. And I have much better pawn structure. Look at my pawns. Look at his pawns. He has islands. I have continents.
So actually you're pinned, but the pressure's on white to do something.
Exactly, unless you can use it. Unless he can use it, I would be better. He played knight a1. After the game, we basically came to conclusion this move was stronger. Threatening now to jump with the knight and do me some harm. One of the ideas is, for instance, take on d6 and then take on d5. And perhaps the best defense would be something like this. Now, if he takes on d6, I take back on d6, protecting the knight. And if he takes on c5, I take this way, also protecting the knight. So, after this, the game could be very, very sharp. And basically, I think the game would be close to be even, with very sharp lines, but it would be close to be even. Instead,
Meanwhile, through it all, though, you've at least recovered your pawn.
Yes.
And your pieces are all developed.
Instead, he played here, and initially, when I was, during those 10-15 minutes, I was thinking first about queen b7, then additional 5 minutes, I was thinking about taking on d5 or not. I saw this move, and I recognized the danger of this move. You see, a natural move for black would be to defend knight with a pawn. But now he goes simply knight e3. I have to take, he has more attacks than I have defense, I have to take. He simply takes back. Now, not to lose the exchange, I have to play d5. He takes my pawn. Now he is again pawn up, and now he has two connected passed pawn. Black is struggling for a draw, and the struggle probably wouldn't be successful. Fortunately, it was not forced. Fortunately, on knight a1, I have another line, and this line involves a sacrifice of the queen. It was a real sacrifice. I would give away a queen, and I played knight to, in this position, played knight to c3. Well, Hort took my queen, and I took back, ignoring his queen, and he played now queen to d3. Well, you know, it was, Hort, of course, was a great player, and he knew how to think when surprised, but even with all knowledge, even great players make mistakes when surprised. Perhaps he should play queen d2, and after I take knight b1, play queen to e3. And attacking my pawn, winning a tempo, then moving his pawn. Material-wise, I would be down material. I will have a rook and a bishop against queen. In fact, I will have a rook and a bishop, yes, rook and a bishop against queen, so I'm almost like pawn down. On the other hand, I have two bishops, and as you know, two bishops together is more than arithmetic sum of those bishops. I thought position is at least equal. He played a3. What else can he do? He could try this move, but after all, b3 pawn would fall, and then a4 pawn would fall. So what Hort is trying to do, he wants to exchange his two weak pawns for one my good pawn. a3, and I played bishop a2. I play bishop a2. It is here I had, by the way, it's one of psychological moments. It's difficult to, when you have a choice of two moves which looks equally good, it's difficult choice. And at some moment, if you cannot make a choice, you can like toss a coin. This move has its merits, keep bishop on diagonal close to my king or whatever, don't bring it too much away from the game. On the other hand, well, maybe in some cases I would like to come with bishop to c4 to attack pawn on a2. I look at long time, and I said, well, I can look at this position maybe for another 2 hours and still not know which move is better, and perhaps both are equally good. Bishop a2. And they say even here it's easy to make
so
mistakes.
So now he played knight d2, you said was inaccurate. You said he would do better to play b4 to try and trade off these pawns.
Well, perhaps, but in this case, I also may, one of the reasons perhaps he rejected this move that I can either after taking or immediately play knight, bishop c4, attacking pawn on b3, attacking pawn on e2, and then winning it with check. So he played knight d2, and I play rook f to b8. So perhaps Hort's initial intention was to let me take, so I give away my strong bishop, and I wouldn't have a bishop pair. But however, if he would only allow me to take on b3, then eventually pawn on a3 would fall, and he will have a queen against rook, knight, and two pawns. And I have also bishop at the board and another rook, which basically benefits me because his queen, as we'll see, is very limited in his action. My pawns would be very strong pass c pawn. I will have very strong advantage. So Hort at this moment decided it's time for him to exchange his two weak pawns for one my strong pawn. And here he makes something very good professionally. At this moment, and he was certainly a great professional player, at this moment he offered me a draw. He understands that I'm kind of younger and less experienced player. He understands my situation in tournaments, that while it would be very attractive to me for me to win the game, losing for me would be devastating. And he also very professionally offered me a draw in the right moment where I have many choices. I have, first of all, of course, I have a choice to accept a draw. I can win the pawn. I can simply take the pawn, but by doing so, I will give away my very strong c pawn. I can say, well, why not? Those pawns, after all, don't go very far. Why shouldn't I create my, if I want to play for win? And this basically some psychological mistake many players are doing. When I know it from experience with my students, someone would offer him a draw, and he would say, and then he would start playing very sharply. I said, well, you're not obliged to play sharply after someone will offer you a draw. You can even repeat position once or twice if it's good for you, because you have little time and to win some time. You're not obliged to play sharply for win. So, but psychologically, it kind of provoked you to start playing sharply. But the problem with this move is that I'm cutting off my bishop, and now, in fact, he may really start doing some attacking on the king's side. I could, of course, bring the bishop back, and now it would be great to play c4, but now he would first take on c5, and my pawns would become not so connected, which may give target for the queen. So I thought for a long time, and I very quickly decided I would reject the draw. I basically was choosing between which move to make, and I decided, well, I would reject the draw, but I would still play in very positional banker gambit type fashion, keeping my pawns together.
Okay. So in the game,
yes,
you took,
he took. I took on d4. He played knight f3. I played with tempo bishop g7. He played queen h3. Now you see how bishop harasses the queen. Because of my good pawn structure, he has really nowhere to go. Material is equal, but he has nowhere to go. He played queen e1, protecting pawn on e2. I play bishop c4, putting more pressure. And now I threaten to attack pawn again. Play king g2 to protect the pawn. I play rook a1.
A1.
And he played knight g1. Just stop for just 1 second. We have a position where queen doesn't have a single move. It must be lost. Must be lost.
So now, after you played here, you said you had a winning advantage.
It's certainly winning advantage. He has to make ugly move king h3, h5, to restrict his king. He played f4. Now tactic would be soon called check. King g2, knight d5, preparing for various forks. And basically position is lost. He played king f3, bishop c3 attacking the rook, rook d1.
And now, after bishop b2, he in fact resigned because everything is